Hello everyone, my name is Kay Woodgate. I'm a movement therapist at Move Beyond, and in today's video I'm going to talk to you about pelvic floors and how they connect into our feet, legs and hips. Now, pelvic floors is something that a lot of us care about, and the health of pelvic floors has been discussed in so many ways. Very often, however, I'm sure the first thing you might have heard about this is, do your Kegel squeezes to strengthen pelvic floor muscles. If only it had been as easy as that. In fact, research supports that pelvic floor squeezes might be effective in the short term, but they're not resolving the problem in a medium to long term run. So there's got to be another way just from those statistics. Having said that, the popular knowledge isn't really fully aware of how complex our body is and where do our pelvic floors fit in. We tend to think of our muscles as little short pulleys that if we squeeze, we strengthen them. That's not really the case. Our body is a fully integrated system. When something contracts, something opposing it needs to stretch, and muscles work in chains. So one connects into the next one, into the next one, into the next one, and so forth. And because we are hardly ever stationary at all, we are moving creatures. All the time we're in a state of flux. Our pelvic floor responds to all of our movements. So just by thinking about that little fact alone, we should start thinking, do static pelvic floor clenches really have the benefit of strengthening the pelvic floor? The answer is no. And especially when we walk, we integrate the workings of the pelvic floor into how our feet, legs and hips move or don't move. So there's a number of really important questions and concepts that I need to address here as briefly as I possibly can. Feet. Our feet are made to move. They're made to point, flex, roll into the arch, lift the arch. The rolling into the arch is called pronation. The lifting of the arch is called supination. Neither of them are good or bad or better than each other. In fact, they're absolutely essential. So by making sure that our feet move well and all the time, and as we walk, we can connect the workings of our feet into all the muscular chains that go up the inside, up the outside of our leg, eventually into the pelvic floor. Hips. Hips that are stiff, don't move, don't allow the rotation of the thigh bone in the socket. That, you can probably imagine, it's a very much closer concept to the pelvic floor because distance-wise they're very close. And in fact there's a distinct anatomical connection from the way our hips rotate or not rotate and how our pelvic floor stretches and contracts. And pelvic floor absolutely has to stretch and contract. It has to stretch to accommodate forces that push down onto the pelvic floor. Forces like sneezing and coughing. We tend to think of forces like sneezing and coughing requiring a big clench down there to support it. In fact, it requires pelvic floor extension, stretching, to accommodate those forces. And we often don't manage to do this very well. So a lot of our pelvic floor problems is the inability of the pelvic floor to adapt to various forces. Now, I'm kind of talking a little bit technical, but it's important to understand this concept because we're not static and we're not stationary, we constantly adapt. The last thing to throw into the mix before I give you a few exercises to play with is a concept that I talk about all the time, is the interplay between pelvic floor and the diaphragm, our breathing, living, breathing muscle. Pelvic floor and diaphragm work in direct opposition to each other. When one contracts, the other one stretches, and vice versa. If we're really tight in our rib cage, if we don't breathe well, if we breathe up into the neck, if the diaphragm doesn't really do much, the natural interplay between the diaphragm and the pelvic floor is broken. So on that, kind of using that analogy alone again, why would some pelvic floor clenches increase the ability of the pelvic floor to work if its partner in crime, the diaphragm, is not doing anything? It's going to move that relationship even further apart. If we can't twist in the rib cage, rotate well, move side to side, there is going to be an impact to the pelvic floor because of the way various core muscles attach from the rib cage down to the lower belly muscles integrate with the pelvic floor. Can you see this is all connected? I am not going to talk about breathing and rotation and flexibility in the chest area in this video, but I will give you a few little exercises for you to start becoming aware of what's happening at the lower portion of this organism that we are inhabiting our body, our feet, our lower legs. So I would love you to have something like a block or a book to stand on, a towel or a washcloth of some sort, and a spiky ball, please. So if you get those things together, I will show you a few exercises to start mobilizing your feet. So exercise number 1, you will need a block, a yoga block or a book to stand on. And if you're feeling tippy, hold on to something for stability. It's not about stability. However, it does help to also, if you want to practice a little bit of stability work. So if you take one of those blocks, I've got this one here. And if you place this on the floor, and you can, in the same fashion, you can use the staircase, a step that you can hang off. And you're going to stand with the balls of your feet on this block and let the heels hang down. So let me show this to you from behind. You're standing on your block, letting the heels hang down all the way as much as possible. And then I would like you to roll out onto the little toe side of your feet, come up, keeping the heels wide, and then bring your heels into parallel so that you're really coming onto the base of the big toe and slowly lower down. So roll out onto the outsides of your feet, come up, roll onto the base of the big toe, come down. Once more, roll out, come up, heels wide, then bring the heels right in and bring them down. You can also practice this in a slightly different way, having something like a tennis or spiky ball between your heels. This time you're going to keep your heels hanging right down, squeeze the little ball between your heels, and then come up and squeeze a little bit harder, and then come down and drop the heels. So as you're coming up and down, what I'd like you to observe and have a look down at the bottoms of your feet. When you're bringing your heels down, your arch flattens and your feet roll inwards. When you're coming up and squeezing the ball, you are lifting the arches up. Also, you're really rebuilding them. So you're really exercising some deep muscles and you're allowing your feet to roll inwards slightly and then really get into that sense of high stiletto type heels, feet, that you can really feel the arches respond. Exercise number 2. For this, you will need a towel, and it will be quite useful, I think, to have a non-slip surface. So I'm just going to roll up my mat out of the way. And if you stand there with your feet toes on the edge of the towel, I want you to scrunch up your toes and start bringing that towel inwards and aim to really move the centers, the soles of your feet, so you can start getting that towel in as close as possible, and make sure all of your toes are curling under, including the big toe. And notice if your arches want to cramp. Exercise number 3. Top of the foot stretch. Bring one foot behind you, place the top of your foot on the floor and really stretch the top of the foot. So if you're pointing your toes like a ballet dancer. And then I would like you to do something slightly different on the same foot. This time, can you lift your big toe up, just the big toe? Place the lifted big toe, the underside of it down to the floor, and your little toes into a stretched position. And this way, you're promoting the lifting of the big toe up. And relax, and repeat again, stretching the top of the foot, including the big toe, and then lift the big toe up. Place this independently of the other toes on the floor, press down gently, and point your other toes, and then stretch the leg. So you can do this side to side both ways. The other really good thing to try is to practice keeping your feet parallel on the floor and rolling your feet inwards without lifting the outsides of your feet, and then rolling your feet outwards as if you're just trying to lift the arches up without squeezing the little toes under. So you're literally aiming to roll the heel bone inwards, and notice how that might take the rest of your leg and thigh inwards on both sides, and then rolling them outwards and aim to create that sense of a lifted arch. So see how that rotates my legs in and then out. And this is what we're trying to promote here. The mobility of the feet and the resulting rolling of your thighs, because it all works together. Last thing I'd like you to try, that's more for the hips and the pelvis, that connects right into your pelvic floor. If you come down to be on all fours, hands under the shoulders, knees under the hips, nice long spine, chin gathered in. I would like you to press, let's say, into the left knee, because that's the one I've got set up here. Press into the left knee more and more and more, and start lifting by virtue of pressing the left side into the floor. Lift the right side of your pelvis up until that knee is way lifted, and then bring it down. Let's just show this to you from behind. So you're pressing the left knee down, lifting the right side of your pelvis up with the knee, with the foot, and as if you're trying to open it to the right. In fact, you can do just that by also adding the open bent knee lift to the side. Then bring it in and lower it down, and then change sides. Press the right side down to the floor. You're going to start to lift the left side of your pelvis up. Keep your arms straight. Then lift the knee up to the side with the knee remaining bent. Bring it back down to point towards the floor and release down gently. I hope you found these exercises interesting and helpful. We're going to do a lot of these in class during this term, where we focus on feet, legs, thighs, and the pelvic floor, of course, as the result of all of that. If you want to join us, you can sign up for classes, including one on Zoom that I run on Monday mornings UK time, or you can subscribe to videos for this whole duration of the term, which is 7 weeks of lots of lovely things to play with, mobilize your feet, get your legs stronger, get your hips more mobile, and get your pelvis and pelvic floor, hopefully to respond in a positive way. Let me know if you've enjoyed this video, give us a like, subscribe to my newsletters, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.